You're watching Chicago Bears Now. I'm your host, Harrison Graham. One more mailbag to go, and hey, I can't wait to answer your questions. So send in your super chats, or you can use #Bears. Let's start with Fofo Plays. Appreciate the super chat. Do you think Pickens will be at 39? So George Pickens, he's talking about the 39th pick, which is where the Bears select in the second round. Pickens, the receiver out of Georgia. I think it's possible because he's got a little bit of an injury history, Fofo. If he is, I think that would be a really good pick there. I think that's good value. David Bell, I think, would be good value there. Could Jamison Williams somehow fall, the receiver from Bama that got injured? Obviously, for his sake, I hope he doesn't. But if he's there at 39, that's a no-brainer for me. Ray Hill, Khalil Mack single-handedly made the Bears defense scary. Why are people saying trade him? First of all, $5. Cheers. Second of all, I don't think any of us, and I'll speak for myself, I'm not actively trying to trade Khalil. But if I can get a first-round pick and potentially more, I have to consider that. He's an aging player. He's coming off injury, and you don't have a first-round pick this year. I think a new GM would be entertained by having a first-round pick. So I'm not saying you just do it no matter what. I'm saying it's worth considering. That's all. So listen, you're not doing your job as a GM if you're not taking calls. So we'll see what happens, but I think that's why. Jimmy Jolly, what a name. Will Roquan Smith get a contract extension this offseason, or will he play out his fifth-year option without a new deal? So that's one of the first big personnel decisions the Bears' new GM has to make. Roquan Smith, he's got his fifth-year option was accepted last year, so he's got one more year on his deal this year. But you could see a player of his caliber decide to hold out for a new deal. We know how good Roquan is. By the way, that's 163 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 3 pass breakups, and a pick there. He's a great player. And I'll ask you guys, should the Bears give Roquan an extension, type Y for yes, type N for no? I think they should. It's going to cost a lot of money, but you know what? When you have cornerstone players like that, then I think keeping them is what you got to do. We'll make this the pinned comment on today's video, so go ahead and reply right there. Alan Mack, why don't we play Whitehair at center? He got to a Pro Bowl when he started there, and in the past 2 years, he's been messed around. That's an option. It certainly is, right? I've heard that he and James Daniels either don't like playing center or they're not great communicators, and you got to be both. You got to want to play that position, and you got to be verbal to play that spot. I think I would explore that because I think he'd be better than Mustipher because he was bad at guard this year, especially as a pass blocker. Whitehair regressed majorly in 2021. Joseph, appreciate the question. What player do you deal in order to trade up in the draft? I mean, we talked about Khalil Mack. Robert Quinn's a guy. Could you tag and trade A-Rob? Probably not because his second-year franchise tag is going to be over $20 million. I don't know if he even gets that in free agency, so I think he's probably just gone. I guess you could trade Roquan. I'm not going to do that, though, because he's still such a young player. But those are some guys you could trade to move up. Quinn for Defensive Player of the Year. Are the Josh McCown rumors true as head coach? I don't think so. I haven't seen much of that, but could he be on staff? Quarterback's coach, maybe? I'd be intrigued by that. A lot of people think he's a future head coach in this league, but that would be quite a leap. I mean, he was playing the NFL 2 years ago, so yeah, I don't think that's very likely. You know what is likely? We're going to watch some good football this weekend. Even though the Bears aren't involved and you want to spice it up, this is the nice part about your team not being in it anymore, is you can just bet on these games and just sit back, relax, and enjoy some football. Get going with BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/Bears, promo code BEARDOWN. This is an early look at these matchups here. Titans-Bengals, Tennessee 3.5-point favorites. The over-under set for 47 points. Packers-Niners, Packers 6-point favorites. In this one, over-under set at 47.5. Bucks-Rams, Bucks are 3-point favorites, over-under 48.5. And then Chiefs-Bills, Kansas City 2.5-point favorites, over-under 55. I think we've got potential for 4 great football games. If you want to go bet on them, go to chatsports.com/Bears. Use our promo code BEARDOWN. Darius Reddy, majority of the home games are against tougher teams, and the road games are majority sub-500 teams. It's great. Yeah, look, the schedule lines up nicely next year. It really does, guys. Like, again, we don't know when the Bears are, who they're playing in week 1 versus week 4, etc. But we do know the opponents, which we're going to break that down. It's just there's so much going on with the coach and GM stuff. But that will be a video at one point. But yeah, just as a teaser, this schedule next year is much more manageable. Trust me. Lucas praying if the Bears do make Flores the coach, what about Joe Brady as OC? His offense struggled from poor quarterback play, and Fields is definitely better. Yeah, the Joe Brady thing's tough, right? Because his offense didn't look the same in the NFL as it did at LSU. There could be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe his scheme didn't translate because it's college to pro. I think a more common reason is the quarterbacks he had were Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, and Cam Newton, and P.J. Walker, and they're all bad NFL quarterbacks. Bridgewater's okay, and Bridgewater was okay last year in 2020. Darnold stinks, Cam stinks. We all know that. I think Fields has much better potential, but it's a risk because the last 2 years, Brady's offenses haven't done well. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I think you got to look at other guys as well. Patrick, will Pace or Nagy get another shot? In some capacity, absolutely. I've heard that Ryan Pace is well-respected throughout the league. I expect him – I think he could land an assistant GM job, president of football operations, vice president of football ops. I think he'll land with another franchise this year if he wants to. Maybe he'll take a year off. We'll see. Same with Nagy. I don't think he'll be a head coach right away, but I could see him being a quarterback's coach, probably on a team with an established quarterback. Makes more sense for him, not a guy that needs to develop like Fields did. But Andy Reid loves him. Like, if Eric Bieniemy gets a head coaching job, he might just bring Nagy back. I mean, that's very much a possibility. Nixon Pamphil, mock draft time. Soon. So it's hard to do a mock draft when you don't know who the GM is. But if it's this time next week and there's no GM in place, I might just say screw it. I'll go ahead and do a mock draft. But yes, that's on the docket. Draft rumors, targets, all that stuff. We will have all of those videos. That is why you subscribe, because we cover it all. Right now, the hot topics are the GM and coaching search. So that's what we've been kind of hammering, but we top 50 free agents as well. A couple weeks ago, we did the Bears free agents, whether they should keep or let them go on some of them. We'll have more free agency coverage, more draft coverage, more coaching and GM coverage, more live shows, more Q&As. I mean, we're going to have you guys covered. This is why you subscribe. 40,000 plus of you have already done so, and if you haven't, join the movement, man. We're rocking and rolling here at Chicago Bears Now. The Supreme Winter Soldier. If you could model the Bears O-line after any team, which would it be? We need to protect Fields better. Honestly, in some sense of the word, Indianapolis. Now, Carson Wentz didn't work out that well this year, but the O-line's in place. Now, I want better receivers than Indy has, but you already have Darnell Mooney. You get one more, you're good there. But yeah, you need a stronger O-line. Dallas, before the O-line is falling apart, would be another example of how to build an O-line. Draft really well, groom those guys. I think you're probably going to have to sign at least one guy, though, for this year, whether it's a center or guard or tackle. But I want to build this offensive line, then you do everything else. Get a good O-line, add a receiver, get a corner on defense. I think if you can pull off those three things this offseason, you've had a great offseason. Fofo plays. Nolan Smith from Georgia will be a star. Maybe trade Mack and Quinn and then draft him and then sign another outside linebacker. It's possible. I like Travis Gibson, so I think if you trade Mack or Quinn, Gibson can be one of your edge starters. Georgia's got a ton of good players coming out. I think those are guys that are going to go in the top 100, Smith included. So, yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Eamon Elias, do you think trading for Xavien Howard is an option? Possibly, especially if you get Brian Flores. That relationship would be in place. It's going to cost you a lot, though. You don't have a first-round pick, so you'd have to probably trade a future first. So, I'd have to feel like I'm getting a lockdown corner for the next 5+ years to trade another first-round pick away. Darius Hendricks, do we know all of the candidates that we've interviewed? College coaches, i.e. Harbaugh, media members, Riddick doesn't need permission, etc. So what you're asking is, are there guys that have been interviewed that we don't know about? Well, the Bears have been tweeting out when they complete interviews. So if they've contacted Harbaugh and Riddick, I don't think those interviews have happened yet. But yeah, there's a pretty good feeling of which guys they have and haven't interviewed. Sure, a couple could slip through the cracks. Monty Osenfort was a good example. Bears tweeted out, we've completed an interview with Titans Director of Player Personnel, Monty Osenfort. And it was like, everybody was like, No one even reported that they're interviewing him. So guys can slip through the cracks, but I think for the most part, we all have a pretty good idea. Nick Biskey, do you think a full-on rebuild is on the table, or do we try to contend after filling a few holes? I don't think it's a full rebuild. You have a young quarterback. Sure, you're still building. It's not, change one or two players and you're a Super Bowl contender, but I don't think this is tear everything down, trade everything you can, Texans style last year and try and get as much as you can. I think it's retool. I think that's the word. Retool some things, build in some areas, but obviously you're not trying to go all in for 2022, but I think that you've got some pieces in place to be competitive right away. Let's see. Khalil co-signed Champ Kelly as GM. What do you think? I'm not opposed. I'd rather go with an outsider just because I want a full reset on the coach and GM front, but I could probably be talked into it at the end of the day. I think he's got a bright future.